Welcome to Stimulate Conversations, a sexual wellness business discussions podcast that supports the vast range of professionals supporting consumers from a business perspective within the sexual wellness space. My name is Nicole Leinbach, your host, and the founder of Stimulate, a B2B sexual wellness trade show held annually in Nashville, as well as many other Stimulate experiences throughout the year. I'm also author of the book Retail 101 from McGraw-Hill and professor of retail marketing at Columbia, Chicago. From head to toe, young to mature, purpose to pleasure, Stimulate Conversations is committed to supporting sexual wellness professionals. Together with industry leaders as our guests, we look forward to delivering trusted and important conversations to help support retail, wholesale, spa, salon, and medical professionals who collectively want to help elevate and support their consumers within the sexual wellness community from an educated and professional perspective. Listeners of Stimulate Conversations can look forward to gaining expert-led insight from industry leaders, ranging from doctors to retail operational experts to industry visionaries and more. Without further ado, let's dive into Stimulate Conversations. Welcome to another edition of Stimulate, where I'm excited to welcome one of the co-founders of Austin, Texas-based Modern Beauty, Leslie Laverty. Leslie has a medical background, an entrepreneurship spirit, and a refreshing perspective on sexual wellness. I'm excited to welcome Leslie to Stimulate Conversations and have her share her wisdom and her perspectives with you each today. So without further ado, welcome, Leslie.
Hi, Nicole. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited you're here. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm stimulated.
Ooh, I like that. So I have to say, I'm so fortunate to constantly be surrounded by impressive leaders and innovators within sexual wellness. And you were certainly one of them. I was thrilled when we were introduced, and I would love for you to share your story, who you are, a bit of your professional background, your bio, with our listeners so that they can learn more about you as well as how modern beauty came to life.
Of course. So I'll try and make it quick. So I've been in nursing for 20 plus years. Grew up in Ohio. We have my husband and I have lived here in Austin for about 20 years. Originally coming here, I worked in the emergency room. Did all of the hospital stuff for a long time. Switched over into plastic surgery when I started having babies, and did that for probably the last 8 years, and kind of just dabbled in injectables and then seeing cosmetic patients and all of that stuff. And I think, like, through that process, I mean, you're kind of on in the inside, like, hearing about new places to put injectables. And so I think my first thought of, or even like interaction with doing like O shots or anything like transvaginal or rejuvenation type stuff was during that time. I never did this, but and I think it still occurs now when they do orgasm shots, they would put filler in kind of the G spot area. That way would make it more robust. And so I remember hearing that kind of verbiage, and I was like, oh, that's odd, but it kind of stuck in my brain. So then when I got deeper into aesthetics and kind of investigating like other avenues, and I started doing vaginal rejuvenation with lasers, that's kind of how I went down the path to get into the OSHOT kind of realm of sexual wellness. And just kind of there's a lot of very unhealthy sexual practices out there, and just people that are very unhappy that I try and make them happier. But yes.
Well, I love that. I love that you genuinely care about your customers. I mean, that's, having spoke with you in the past, I already know that. So you're genuinely wanting to support your customers. And you would define, because you've told me this as well, modern beauty as a med spa, so a medical spa, right?
Yes, we I think the biggest thing with med spas were a dime a dozen, if you will. They're everywhere. So we were trying to, with modern beauty, encompass some different things. So it definitely has all the aesthetics. We do all the injectables. We do a lot of PRP for hair restoration. We do O shots. I love PRP. It's making your own body heal itself. It's been around forever. Low chance of any kind of issue with it or reaction. So I like the safety net that we have with that.
So wait, I'm gonna
Um,
pause you right there because for those of us who
yeah,
don't know, what is PRP?
so it's platelet-rich plasma.
Okay.
So it's what your body makes naturally. We have blood in our system. You take that blood, so you draw blood, you spin it down in a centrifuge, which is just a machine that goes in a circle really quickly, pushes all the heavy red cells down. So those are the heavy, and on top becomes this beautiful golden liquid that has all the growth factors and all the things for healing that goes to the top because it's lighter. And so that's what we pull off the top of that tube, and that's what we inject. And you can take the concentration of that PRP to all different levels too by if you think about it, like there's a little buffy coat that lies between the red cells and the actual PRP that's got the most growth factor. So we fiddle with that a little bit to just get the best concentration for it. Um, but yeah, so that's what PRP is. And we also, so I use that. You can put it anywhere. I inject it into faces. We microneedle it into faces. The vampire facelift has been around for a long time. That's kind of one of the new things about using PRP is like where we can put it and how it can rejuvenate the skin.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it got into, okay, if we can rejuvenate the face. It's been used in orthopedically to heal tissues and for bone health, cartilage, all of that for years and years and years. So it's got the qualities in it that we make ourselves, that it doesn't take any kind of foreign product, and there to react to your own PRP being put in is pretty much you it just doesn't happen because it's your own.
Right.
You always have a needle and always chance of infection by poking skin, but very low likelihood. Um, so yeah, we started dabbling in that, and that's kind of my passion went to, like, I love PRP because I like to be safe. If I can do something for somebody that I know that I don't really have a downside to it,
Right.
then I'm all in. But we also, so we do PRP, we do all the injectables, we do some wellness components of medications and supplements and all of that. And then we also have a thyroid component with a physician that works with us, that hair, skin, and nails are all affected by the thyroid gland. So it's a little mixture of all the fun things that make women happy if their hair, skin, nails, and weight are in check.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah.
And as a woman myself, I know that if I feel happy, I also feel sexier. And, at Stimulate, one of the things we say is we support head to toe, young to mature, purpose to pleasure. And, you've just encompassed basically that from head to toe, what you guys can offer. And that includes right there. And I like to think of as a heartbeat to our body, the O shot, right? The center part of our souls that may not be your actual heart, but it is a big part of who we are. So that's pretty incredible. Very cool.
Yes, 100%. And just to throw some stats out there, um, only like 18% of women orgasm from vaginal intercourse, which is crazy to me. And these numbers kind of wax and wane, and they're all across the board. 5 to 10% of women have never had an orgasm yet. Hopefully that changes, but um, which is crazy to me. And 59% have faked orgasm at some point in their life. So that's like all of these things that you're like, okay. And and then 95% of men usually orgasm, but only 65% of women in a sexual interaction, which is wild. And I always say to myself, I'm like, man, if we're all playing the game, let's all win type
Yeah.
thing. Why not do anything we can to get to the point where it's either easier to orgasm or you can actually get there?
Mhm.
But it's a orgasm is an interesting thing. I have these conversations with women when they come in and because they're interested in the O shot. That is like, okay, so what's the problem? Because we can orgasm multiple ways. There's clitoral orgasm, there's G spot orgasm, there's anal. There's these nerves everywhere that we can probably get one that works well or multiple, because that's always the goal, is to have multiple. If you can orgasm in all of them, that's perfect. So the funny thing about women is because orgasm, you can't do anything without the brain, right? So everything is connected to you feeling safe, you feeling non-distracted, and you actually being in the moment to realize the sensations that are occurring in your body. So it's a psychological, like, feedback loop, right? If you feel good, you look good, you're in an environment where you're safe, you feel comfortable with your partner, partners, whomever, then you can relax enough to feel the sensations that occur. And then you go to the extreme of like, if it's a really good sensation, you're going to want to do it more. So it's a loop of feeling good, doing things that feel good. But it on the opposite end of that as well, if you are distracted, if you don't feel safe with your partner or partners,
Right.
um, and you have a bad outcome, saying maybe you didn't orgasm, or maybe that other person didn't, it just feeds this loop of not really wanting to do it or as often or really at all.
Right.
So it's about keeping kind of just that spirit of that sensation alive.
Yeah.
And that all starts with the brain. And so mentally, you have to be kind of on point. And as we know in this day and age,
Yeah.
like that's tough sometimes. But yeah.
100%. I mean, I can speak, on a personal side, just having conversations with friends, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we don't have sex anymore," referring to maybe their husband, their partner, whomever. And it always astounds me, to be honest, because I'm like, why wouldn't you want to? Coming from a place of what you just discussed, like if you're doing it and you can enjoy it, why would you not want to do that more? So, kind of talk to me about how maybe the O shot or some of the other procedures or offerings you might provide to your patients or customers can help women come back to this place of a sexual wellness in the sense of they want to be a part of that again. I mean, do you find that this is bringing back vitality and bringing back interest?
It does. Okay, so PRP with all of those growth factors, it increases blood flow. So when you inject it into tissue, it increases blood flow, not just by dilating the vessels, but it actually can create new vessels to form.
Okay.
So by increasing circulation into the areas, i.e., the vaginal area, um, you have more blood flow, more sensation, just kind of almost like you're in tune to that part of your body.
Okay.
I can speak from experience in the fact of after you have it, it's almost like you have this vibration inside of you that you're like, huh, I want to be touched.
Yeah.
Um, and if you can get that touching to the point of it feeling good and actually have an orgasm, then you want to be touched all the time.
Right.
So it's just that nice feedback of creating a positive environment and just a positive outcome. When that tissue, so the other things that OSHA, so it definitely helps increase that tissue and make it more kind of healthy, more robust because of the blood flow.
Okay.
The other thing that I've seen with the O shot, so I have a couple ladies who come in and I inject them because it makes them look more youthful down there.
Okay.
So when that tissue kind of atrophies and becomes a little bit what we call like dehydrated looking, having that tissue just kind of have a little bounce back of hydration, and collagen stimulation just from the actual PRP and the insult of the poking, it makes the tissues look healthier.
Yeah.
It also, healthy tissue is more moisturized tissue. So, lubrication wise, it helps with lubrication. Um, you can inject tissue and have that tissue, like I inject certain spots, and we'll get to this in a little bit as far as like where actually I inject that helps lubrication.
Okay.
But I mean, I've had women call me and say that they're very wet or they've started what we consider squirting. Um, like those things that are kind of just fun, like little adjuncts to it.
Yeah.
It also stress urinary incontinence too.
No.
If you bulk up that tissue and make that tissue a little bit more robust, then you have less. There are obviously different levels of stress urinary incontinence. Like I'll never be able to fix what surgery needs to fix, but just having that so you have a little bit less kind of leakage as far as stress urinary incontinence. So there's all of these great little adjuncts to it that add on to it. But back to okay, so the big things with females to get a positive outcome to an O shot, there's mental, obviously.
Right.
Uh, there is hormone levels. That's another one that I always have a conversation with my patient of, okay, have you had your hormones checked? We need to make sure that their testosterone, like estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, like all of these things. I mean, they play a big role in the desire effect of sexual intercourse. So I make sure that they've had their labs drawn. The absolute best are these ladies that have these pellets on board, that their testosterone is the upper 25% of what is normal. Because that's the other thing is we always treat these people just to be in normal range or low normal. No, be high normal in testosterone.
Okay.
There are other ones, estrogen. There are some that you want to keep at lower markers, but then there are other ones you want to keep high. And those ladies, I mean, they want a no shot every 10 weeks. I mean, just because it's just an amazing kind of boost. They're already like very sexually aroused, and now just to put that component to it, we have very happy partners and very happy
Yeah,
ladies.
I would imagine it can change some people's lives, particularly if
Yeah.
you're using the PRP, the testosterone, which is my understanding, a pellet that goes into your body um,
Mhm.
through a needle, or I don't know actually, but I've spoke to a few people about it. Is it underneath some skin, right? You put a pellet in
Yeah.
skin? Okay.
And there's a couple different ways. You can do bioidentical, you can do creams,
Okay.
you can do your own injections of testosterone, you can do pellets. There's multiple avenues to kind of
Right.
get hormone, whatever's comfortable. There are some people that love pellets and there are some people that don't love them that much. But then there are other ways to kind of get those levels to the higher 25% of norm.
Great.
But
So I
yeah.
want to switch gears a little bit because a lot of our listeners are operating businesses that do, in fact, support sexual wellness based services or products. And one of the things that I'm constantly approached by various people is how do you start the conversation with someone? There's a lot of intimidation from some consumers, and yet there's quite frankly no intimidation from others. And it sounds as if you're working across generations. You have more mature customers, potentially of younger customers. And so, what advice can you offer in terms of really nurturing that customer conversation in regards to sexual wellness and maybe the benefits of some of the services you offer?
That's a huge hurdle. I would say that we have become more successful, number one, by word of mouth,
Mhm.
but number two, by small roundtable discussion.
Okay.
Nobody wants to admit that that area of their life is struggling. I'll have you know eh, the older ladies who, and I'm in that same realm as far as we are not more than willing but more apt to be talking about it because we've got lots of things going on, perimenopausal stuff, just hormone fluctuations, we're done having babies. Um the I feel like the age range that doesn't want to talk about their sexual kind of, not lifestyle, but just any kind of issues that are going on, are kind of in their late 20s, 30s.
Okay.
When you get to your 40s, you're kind of like, game on, whatever. I just want to be happy. I'll do whatever needs to be done. But the ladies kind of that fall in that realm of, and this is kind of when your hormones drop too, because your body's preparing. Like my body is made to make babies, right? And so all of these hormone fluctuations are occurring, and if you don't go on to make a baby, but you have all of these cyclings of hormones, you can get very out of whack and very disappointed with sexual activity, um, or even relationship wise. You're just not, your frame of mind is very different. So I do think that, I mean, my husband has sold so many O shots for me by way of the husband or the
Yeah.
partner. So I feel like that's very easy, but I feel like if you can get a woman in a smaller discussion group
Mhm.
to feel comfortable and talk about the fact that everybody struggles, and all it takes is like one person either to have a really good outcome of like, oh my gosh, I had an O shot, it changed my life. Like now I want to have sex. um, Everybody opens up. It's like it is wild how the flower blooms when one person is brave enough to be like, "Hey, here's my story, and why can't we have an amazing sexual experience every single
Yeah.
time that we?" I mean, if everybody's playing the game, let everybody win. Um, so I do think that those smaller environments where people feel safe. I have people ask me all the time. I didn't train for the P shot, which is the shot for men. But I have men ask me all the time about that part of it. And so I think that when they feel comfortable with you, they definitely open up
I
for
would agree
sure.
with you. And you mentioned a few things that I just want to highlight here. So you had mentioned first a roundtable. So are you actually hosting where you're inviting patients or customers to join you for that intimate conversation experience? Because I think that's a great takeaway for listeners who might be able to implement in that in their own business, however that might look. So how does that work? Is it a evening thing, an afternoon, invite only? What does that look like?
I like to cap it. I'm not gonna lie. So before COVID, we did quite a few just little evening intimate little settings where we had like a guest that would come in and talk, because it's one thing to hear it from me who does it, but it's another thing to hear it from somebody who's had it and is very happy. So we would have somebody come in and kind of give them kind of their experience, usually around 10 to 15 ladies,
Okay.
and then the conversation just opens. We are getting back to, I'm trying to kind of gauge. It's hard to get people to come in, especially after hours. Everybody's busy, everybody's got stuff to do. So we've thought about doing more like Instagram lives where we have conversations and then people can either submit questions after or during. But I do have some ladies when they express interest, I'll have them get a group of their friends together and we'll have small intimate discussions and we come in the office and just talk about it. But I think that like those types of things are easier. And then once you kind of educate them, it goes on to educate everybody else. It kind of trickles out from there.
And that word of mouth marketing really is very powerful. So I couldn't agree more with that. And the second thing I wanted to highlight was the emotional component because you had mentioned your husband has helped to sell those O shots. And I think that speaks to the emotion of the customer, right? Like she wants to relate to her own partner or husband. So therefore, that's a moment of connectivity. I just wanted to make sure to reinforce that because I really loved that. I think consumer emotion really does drive purchase decisions of all
Mhm.
kinds, but particularly when it's as sensitive as sexual wellness and your own pleasure or purpose within that category. So, um,
Yes, yeah, for sure.
great. So, a couple other things I wanted to ask you within your physical med spa environment, do you use signage or display? How are you announcing these things, maybe in a subtle way without having to always tell them, but rather they can kind of poke their own curiosities? What does your environment look like in that regard?
Well, okay, so knowing that the O shot is it's a topic that you can't, because you want to keep it
Yeah.
classy, you want to keep it simple. So it is, you have to tiptoe around it a little bit. Uh, Obviously, social media
Okay.
is pretty easy to keep it on the up and up. To give more education about it and what it is instead of kind of blasting about orgasm, because that turns some people completely away, like they are like, that's sexual, I'm not going to go there, like that's got nothing to do with me. But if you keep it more medical and kind of start off with that, I think that that's good. But we do use a lot of social media and it's primarily what it is. It's obviously on our service menu, it's on our website. We do There's some education on our website and some frequently asked questions stuff on there as well. And then people can communicate back and forth through there as far as if they have any other questions. So that's mainly how the O shot is a trademarked word. So you can't use that. Ours, we say mod O shot, and everybody kind of has their different spin to it. Otherwise, you have to pay this gentleman to use the O shot because it's trademarked, which is completely fine.
Yeah.
But but yeah, so I mean, I think he's done a great job of marketing it to the point that people go out and search for it now more than they did before. And we have, I know in some of like OBGYN offices and stuff like that, they have some signage.
Yeah.
It's usually basic signage like on the countertop and stuff. But yeah, just kind of getting it out there, creating interest, and then they can go search it. The World Wide Web is at our fingertips. So I do feel like all of those things are very helpful.
Yeah, I think marketing and messaging, particularly within the sexual wellness space, is so important to understand as a business operator, right? Because to your point, there's a lot of comfort levels. You want to be sophisticated about it. You are, of course, catering to your audience of consumers who know better than anybody else. So I think that's a huge takeaway too. Just making sure you understand your audience and what their preferences are. And I'm a huge fan of social media for education, sharing insight, offering opportunity to connect, and all those good things. So, if
Yeah.
you could offer some advice to our listeners in terms of growing within the sexual wellness category, because it sounds like you have evolved in your own business from where you started to where you are and welcoming this more into your space. What advice would you offer them if they're beginning to just now introduce anything within sexual wellness within their business?
I think read as much as you can, get educated in why you're doing it. I mean, we all go into certain things, we jump on in because it sounds great, but knowing the history behind it, knowing why you're doing it, and obviously keeping patient safety first, developing relationships with patients to actually truly get to know them, get to know why they would come to you. And when they do come to you, take the information that they gave you as gold and try and make something out of it. I think that with sexual wellness, I think it's just open discussion, and when you can speak to it in an educated way, people are going to trust you.
Yeah,
Everybody in medicine that I know, and it's like if you we get questions all the time that we may not know the answer to, but we sure as heck can find it out
right.
by way of asking around, reading, asking other colleagues, but admitting when you don't know, knowing when stuff's not safe, and creating an environment that makes your patient know that you would never do those things that are kind of that wouldn't make them feel like they are in the best care. So I trained with a physician down in Houston. And I loved the way that he performed his shots. He is an OBGYN. I know that he knows that area very well. Um, I'm always trying to figure out new ways to learn more about it. I've got a friend who's a surgeon who does a lot of gender realignment or reassignment stuff. So, like, I can't wait to go in and watch like how I know where I'm injecting, but how where's it all going? Like, I never get to see, if you will, peel back and behind the scenes
Right.
and see the actual genitalia opened up and let me kind of see like how this all functions and all the nerves and all the vessels and stuff like that that I would be able to see. So I'm privileged in the fact that I have these people that I know that are willing to share that experience with me.
Absolutely. I've always believed so much in education and continuing education. So that sounds fascinating. And we'll have to have a conversation with you another day to learn about that. So, which is amazing. So, when you look ahead to the future of med spas, yours specifically, but in general, where do you see the growth of sexual wellness going?
Well, gosh. So, one of the things I'm super excited about that we actually just did on myself and my partner and the doctor that works with us, we used some exosomes instead of PRP this time. So PRP, because it is drawn from your own blood,
Right.
it depends a lot on your hydration, your diet, your kind of general health. So what you bring to me that day that I draw your blood is the quality of PRP that I'm given to put in back into you. So exosomes are derived from different sources. The ones that we have are derived from adipose tissue, which is fatty tissue.
Nice.
They're freeze dried, and then we reconstitute them with some other kind of additives and proteins and all of these things to kind of make it all nice and robust. And so they're way more concentrated in growth factors. So in essence, it should be a smaller volume with more benefit. So we just it did O shots with those
Okay.
recently. The other thing I want to try is I want to mix the two. I want to take your PRP and exosomes and just give it like the best traveling agent you can possibly make and put them together and let them see what they'll do. So just kind of experimenting with things that we know are good and safe and to see if we can get even that level higher. Um, and I'd like to try and inject different areas because I mean if it's good for tissue, there there's definitely a connection between urination and orgasm,
Okay.
which there's a there's something in there like if we can those nerves and that little nerve branch bundle, there's something in there that we can kind of to bring to the surface and maybe even increase it more. But I think that there's just more to learn about that area of our body,
Okay.
and I think The future is bright for us.
And I'm personally very excited about all the things that you've shared today. And I'm really excited for the growth of the sexual wellness category, finally making an impact on a more personal consumer level. Like it's not just behind the scenes or whispers or having to just go to your OBGYN. You can go straight to a med spa. You can go, straight to other various types of retail stores and experiences to welcome this. So, which is amazing. So I want to also ask, for those listening, how can they stay in touch with you or learn from you if they want to connect again?
So our website is modernbeautyatx.com. You can message through there. You can go to our social media sites, which is Modern Beauty ATX. We always do some education. You can always message through Instagram, Facebook. I believe we have a TikTok. I'm not really sure. All of the different things. But yes, we can answer any questions. And kind of go from there. I feel like it's so much easier nowadays to get in touch with different companies and get more information than I mean, before you had to take an article or a magazine article, which I mean, gone are those days. You can get a hold of anybody at any point in time now, which is
Absolutely.
nice.
Yeah, and I would encourage anybody to get a hold of you because I had the pleasure of speaking with you before and you know a wealth of information. I can't wait till we return to Austin with Stimulate in October of 2024, where we will actually be hosting an event called Stimulate Roadshow. So I know you'll be there and I look forward to having you speak there. We discussed that as well. So looking forward to that. Those listening, be sure and stay attuned of what's ahead with that. And finally, as part of the Stimulate conversation experience, I have some rapid fire questions for you, Leslie. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. If you could just reply with some quick rapid fire replies, and we'll go from there. Sound good?
Sure.
Awesome. Well, the first one is, what does sexual wellness mean to you?
Oh, it means having fun, enjoying life, and everything it's about, and feeling happy.
And how do you define good customer service?
Knowing your clientele and making them feel safe.
And what keeps you personally inspired?
Um, my friends, my family, the work ethic of some of my friends, my husband's work ethic, like that inspires me.
Yeah. And what about keeping professionally inspired?
My partner with Modern Beauty, Melissa, like we have a humor between the two of us that is amazing, and we both have the dedication and the thirst for knowledge. We love what we do.
Love that. And what's the best advice you have for business leaders?
Um, Stay on top of, I mean, social media, get really good at it. I mean, that's where it's at. That's where you connect to the most people. I'm, I wish, I mean, that's one of our things I want to be better at. And I feel like the younger population is such a step up on that because I didn't grow up with that. So we're trying to get better, but I feel like that's hands down easiest way to get out there and let people know you're there.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you on behalf of the entire Stimulate team and myself. Truly appreciate this conversation and your wisdom. So thank you for sharing.
You're very welcome.
And to those of you who have tuned in, thank you as well. Be sure and stay tuned for another episode of Stimulate Conversations coming soon. Stimulate Conversations offers year-round ways to stay in touch between our podcasts, including a private Facebook community for ongoing and more in-depth discussions, which you can find via Facebook at the group name Stimulate Sexual Wellness Business Discussions. You can also stay connected via Instagram at the handle Stimulate the Show. And you're welcome to email us at stimulate@retailminded.com. I'm Nicole Leinbach, founder of Stimulate and your host. And together with the entire Stimulate team, we look forward to continued discussions that will, you guessed it, keep you stimulated on the business of sexual wellness. Till next time, stay stimulated.